The town of Ravenswood woke slowly every morning, the way small towns do, with the smell of bread from the bakery and the sound of shutters opening one by one along the main street. Elena Marsh had lived there for 5 years, long enough that most people no longer asked where she came from. She kept her head down, worked long shifts at the clinic, and came home each night to the two most important people in her life. Kai and Ash were identical in almost every way. Same dark hair, same quick laugh, same habit of finishing each other's sentences. But their eyes were what Elena noticed most, especially when the morning light hit them just right. A pale, stormy gray, so different from her own warm brown that sometimes she had to look away. Those eyes belonged to their father, a man Elena had not seen in 5 years. A man she had run from before either of her sons had taken their first breath. She told herself every day that she had done the right thing. That morning, like most mornings, she walked the twins to the small school near the edge of town before heading to work. Ash held her hand tightly, chattering about a drawing he wanted to finish. Kai walked a step ahead, more serious, more watchful, the way he had been since he could crawl. Elena often thought he seemed too aware of the world for a 5-year-old boy, as if some old instinct inside him already understood that they were different from other children. She used herbal wards each night, a habit taught to her by an old healer before she fled, to keep her son's scent hidden from anyone who might recognize what they were. It was tiring, constant work, but it was the only thing standing between her boys and the past she had escaped. That same morning, many miles away, Alpha King Damien Voss stood at the window of his study, looking out over the gray hills of Blackthorn Peak. He had not slept well in longer than he could remember. Sleep brought memories, and memories brought her face. 5 years ago, Elena had vanished. No warning, no goodbye. His trackers had searched for months, then years, following false leads through territories that no longer existed after the pack purges that swept through the region not long after her disappearance. Eventually, even his most loyal men had gently suggested that she might not have survived. Damien never truly believed that, not in his heart. But belief without proof was a heavy, useless thing, and he had learned to carry it quietly, the way a king learns to carry every private grief so it does not show on his face during council meetings. That day, however, a trade dispute between his territory and a neighboring pack required him to travel personally through the border towns, Ravenswood among them. It was not a journey he had ever made before. His advisors suggested a swift, quiet visit, in and out before midday, so as not to draw attention from the humans who lived unaware of what truly moved through their streets. Damien arrived at dawn, his personal guard fanned out discreetly around him as he walked through the town's small market to meet the trade envoy. He paid little attention to the stalls, the fruit vendors, the noise of a town waking up. His mind was already on the meeting ahead. Then he heard laughter, 2 voices, almost identical, calling out to each other near a fruit stand. He did not know why he turned his head. Perhaps it was instinct, the same quiet pull that had once led him to Elena in a crowded hall years ago. But when he looked, his entire body went still. 2 boys, no older than 5, stood near a stack of apples, one reaching up to grab a piece of fruit, while the other laughed and pointed. Their hair was dark, their faces still round with childhood, but their eyes, when the boy nearest him turned to look, were unmistakably gray. His gray, the exact shade that had marked every member of his bloodline for generations, a color no outsider could fake or inherit by chance. Damien's breath caught in his throat. He took a step closer without meaning to, and that was when a woman's voice called out, sharp with worry. "Kayash, stay close, please." Damien turned toward the voice, and the world seemed to slow down around him. Elena stood only a few feet away, her hand outstretched toward her son's, her face frozen the moment her eyes met his. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The market noise faded into the background, the vendors, the passing townspeople, all of it disappearing until there was only the 2 of them and the impossible truth standing between them in the shape of 2 small boys. "Elena," Damien said, his voice rough, barely more than a whisper. She did not answer right away. Her hand trembled slightly as she pulled Kai and Ash gently toward her, positioning herself half in front of them, an old protective instinct that had never faded, even after 5 years of believing she was safe. "You need to leave," she said quietly, though her voice shook. "Please, Damien, not here." But it was already too late. He had seen them. He would never be able to unsee them. "They're mine," he said, not as a question, but as a statement forming slowly and painfully in his chest. "Elena, tell me they're mine." Her silence was answer enough. Ash, sensing the tension though not understanding it, looked up at his mother with wide eyes. "Mama, who is that?" Elena knelt quickly, brushing a hand over her son's hair, trying to steady her own breathing. "It's all right, sweetheart. Go stand with your brother for a moment." Damien's guards had noticed the exchange and moved to give them space, though their presence remained close, watchful. Damien barely registered them. His entire focus was on the woman in front of him and the 2 boys who shared his eyes. 5 years, he said, his voice tightening with something between anger and heartbreak. 5 years, Elena. I searched for you. I never stopped. "I know," she said, her eyes filling with tears she refused to let fall in front of her sons. "I know you did. That's exactly why I couldn't let you find me." They agreed, in hushed and careful words, to speak properly later that day, away from the children, and away from curious eyes. Damien sent word to his envoy that the trade meeting would be delayed. For the first time in longer than he could remember, something mattered more to him than his kingdom's business. That afternoon, in the quiet back room of Elena's small house, with the twins occupied by a puzzle in the next room, under the careful watch of one of Damien's most trusted guards, Elena finally told him everything. She explained how, in the final weeks of her pregnancy, an elder from his own court, a woman Elena had trusted, came to her in secret with a warning. There were whispers among certain council members, ambitious voices who saw Damien's unclaimed, half-human mate as a threat to old bloodline politics, and any children she carried as an even greater one. The elder feared that if the pregnancy became known before Damien could secure enough loyalty to protect them, the twins might not survive their first year, disguised as accidents, as so many inconvenient heirs before them had been. "I didn't know who to trust," Elena said, her voice breaking. "Not even you. Not fully, because I didn't know who around you might already be compromised. I only knew I had one chance to keep them safe, and that meant disappearing before anyone learned I was carrying twins." Damien sat in silence for a long moment, his jaw tight, his hands clenched on his knees. The grief in his eyes was old and heavy, mixing now with a fresh, sharper pain. "You should have come to me," he said finally. "I would have protected you. All 3 of you." "Maybe," Elena admitted. "Or maybe I would have handed you a choice no father should have to make between his throne and his children before you even had a chance to hold them. I couldn't take that risk. I'm sorry, Damien. I'm not sorry I protected them, but I am sorry for what it cost you, what it cost us." Damien looked toward the door where the twins' laughter drifted faintly from the next room. 5 years of grief, of empty searching, of a hollow ache he had never been able to name, suddenly had a shape and a reason. It did not erase the pain, but it gave it a place to finally rest. "I need to meet them," he said quietly, properly, as their father. Elena nodded, wiping her eyes. "They deserve that. They've always deserved that." The introduction was gentle and slow. Damien knelt to their level, something few in his kingdom had ever seen their king do for anyone. Ash, curious and unafraid, studied him closely before asking, quite simply, "Are you like us? Your eyes look like mine." Damien's throat tightened. "Yes," he said. "I think I am very much like you." Kai, quieter, more cautious, watched the exchange carefully before finally stepping closer. "Are you going to make Mama sad again?" The question struck Damien harder than any political threat ever had. He looked at Elena, then back at his son. "No," he said firmly. "I am going to do everything I can to make sure no one makes either of you sad, ever again." Over the following days, Damien returned to Ravenswood as often as his duties allowed, learning slowly how to be a father to 2 boys who had grown up without one, while quietly setting in motion an investigation into the conspiracy Elena had described years earlier. He trusted only a small circle of loyal advisors with the truth, working carefully to expose the ambitious voices within his court, who had once threatened his family's safety before they even knew such a family existed. It took weeks of careful, quiet work, but eventually the truth came out. Two council members, longtime critics of Damien's choice in a mate they considered unworthy of the bloodline, were revealed to be behind the old threats, their plans preserved in old messages the elder had kept as insurance before her passing. Justice, when it came, was swift and absolute, carried out under Damien's direct authority, ensuring that the shadow which had once forced Elena into hiding was permanently removed. With the danger gone, Damien did something no one in his court expected. He called for a formal gathering at Blackthorn Peak, not for trade or politics, but to publicly reclaim Elena as his true mate and to name Kai and Ash as his rightful heirs before the entire court. Elena stood beside him on the morning of the ceremony, her heart pounding, watching her sons in small formal clothes that made them look far older than 5, holding hands as they always did, gray eyes wide as they took in the crowd gathered to honor them. She thought of the years of hiding, the exhausting nights of herbal wards and quiet fear, the constant weight of raising 2 children alone while protecting a secret too dangerous to share. None of it had been easy, but standing there, watching Damien kneel once more to speak softly to his sons before the ceremony began, she understood that every difficult choice had led them, finally, to this moment. As dawn broke fully over Blackthorn Peak, casting a soft golden light across the gathered crowd, Damien rose and turned to face his people, one hand resting gently on Elena's shoulder, the other on the shoulders of his sons. "For 5 years, I searched for what I believed I had lost," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the courtyard. "Today, I understand that what was taken from me was never truly gone. It was hidden, protected, kept safe by a strength I did not fully understand until now." He looked down at Elena, then at Kai and Ash, both boys looking up at him with matching gray eyes full of quiet trust. "These are my sons," he continued, "and this is their mother, my true mate, who protected them against threats I did not even know existed. From this day forward, they stand beside me, not hidden, not in danger, but honored as they always should have been." The crowd's response was immediate, a wave of acceptance and respect that Elena had never dared to imagine possible during her years of hiding. She felt Damien's hand tighten gently around hers, a silent promise that the fear which had shaped so much of her life was finally, truly over. Later that evening, as the twins finally fell asleep, worn out from a day of excitement and new faces, Elena stood with Damien on a quiet balcony overlooking the peaceful hills of his kingdom. "I spent 5 years running," she said softly, convinced that keeping them hidden was the only way to keep them safe. Damien wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "And you did keep them safe," he said. "Every single day. I only wish I could have carried that weight with you sooner." Elena rested her head against his shoulder, watching the last light of day fade over Blackthorn Peak. "You're carrying it now," she said. "That's what matters." For the first time in 5 long years, Elena allowed herself to believe, fully and completely, that the running was over, and that whatever came next, her sons would face it not as hidden secrets, but as beloved heirs, standing openly beside the father who had never stopped searching for them, in the light of a new dawn.